And the Oscar goes to Clint Eastwood for Unforgiven.
At 95, Clint Eastwood is finally breaking a silence he's kept for decades. And what he's revealing is not only shocking Hollywood, but forcing the world to see a cinematic icon in an entirely new light. From legendary roles in The Good, The Bad and the Ugly and Dirty Harry, to his Oscar-winning direction in $1 Million Baby and Unforgiven, Eastwood built an empire on unwavering grit, ironclad principles, and a quiet but commanding presence. Yet behind the spotlight lies a hidden story of unspoken tensions, of those he admired and those he never respected. Now, with time no longer on his side, Clint Eastwood has chosen to speak the truth. And that truth is sending shockwaves through an entire industry. Some mocked his values. One documentary firestarter tried to make a name for himself by ridiculing Clint's code. Clint didn't laugh, didn't respond. He just made sure it never happened again. Now he's naming names. Join us as we reveal the 7 actors Clint Eastwood never forgave. Michael Moore, just like Clint Eastwood, is known as a famous American film director and producer, but they had a surprising feud since 2005. Clint's dislike for Michael is due to diverse reasons like ideology, personal boundary, and differing views. It all began in 2005 at the National Board of Review Awards dinner, where Clint spoke about Michael's tendency to show up unannounced with a camera crew. He then said, with his trademark no-nonsense face, that if Michael ever came to his home uninvited, he'd kill him. According to the guests there, he said, "I'll kill you! I mean it. I'll shoot you," causing nervous laughter to erupt through the room. 10 years later, Michael recalled the moment online, saying, "10 years ago, Clint announced he would kill me if I ever came with my camera for an interview." The tension withstood time, as he framed Clint's joke as part of a pattern of hostility from conservative celebrities like Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly. Even though Clint later claimed that he never seriously threatened anyone, and joked at CinemaCon in 2015 that it isn't a bad idea, Michael and others saw the underlying message, which is that Clint feels threatened by Michael's intrusive, confrontational documentary style. Another reason why Clint has been critical of Michael is the differences in their storytelling values and styles. Michael usually uses documentary films as a tool of social critique, so in his movies he tackles power, war, and official narratives head-on, often with satirical, controversial flair. His signature film, for instance, Fahrenheit 9/11, took on George W. Bush in the Iraq War, and accused the Bush administration of deceptive and tragic handling of war. On the other hand, Clint sees storytelling as a more respectful art form, especially when it comes to military service. Having grown up valuing silent sacrifice from Wintu through Korea and Vietnam, Clint sees military service as sacred. For him, telling a story about war isn't about provocation, but about honoring lived experience. So when Michael's film was released and portrayed U.S. military leaders as manipulative or exploitative, Clint wasn't happy with it. In fact, the "I'll kill you" incident happened after Michael released Fahrenheit 9/11 and criticized the Bush administration, and Clint's $1 Million Baby was being celebrated. It created a tense atmosphere between the two of them. But Michael Moore isn't the only famous actor that Clint Eastwood doesn't like because of their differences in storytelling. Spike Lee Clint Eastwood has a pretty high-profile feud with Spike Lee, especially because of their different ideologies. It started in 2006 when Clint released Flags of Our Fathers, as part of a 2-film exploration of World War II's Battle of Iwo Jima. The film focused on the American soldiers who raised the flag on Iwo Jima and the story of wartime heroism. However, Spike Lee, the famous actor, producer, director, and writer who usually explores race relations in his movies, argued that Clint didn't add the contributions of African-American Marines who fought and died during the battle. In 2008, Spike publicly criticized Clint for omitting black soldiers from Flag of Our Fathers, saying, "Clint Eastwood made 2 films about Iwo Jima that ran for more than 4 hours total, and there was not one Negro actor on the screen." But Clint responded, saying, "The story is Flag of Our Fathers, the famous flag-raising picture, and they didn't do that. If I go ahead and put an African-American actor in there, people would go, 'This guy's lost his mind.' I mean, it's not accurate. A guy like him should shut his face." Clint doubled down on his statement, saying, "I'm playing it the way I read it historically, and that's the way it is. When I do a movie and it's 90% black, like Bird, then I use 90% black people." Regardless of the explanation, Spike Lee refused to back down. He responded, saying, "Clint sounds like an angry old man," and retorted, "The man is not my father, and we're not on a plantation either." He even offered to bring black veterans to confront Clint on the historical record and said, "I could assemble African-American men who fought at Iwo Jima, and I'd like him to tell these guys they did not exist. The dispute went beyond just one film, as it spoke to a deeper, long-running issue in Hollywood's portrayal of Black history. As the media buzz grew, Steven Spielberg, who was the producer on the Iwo Jima films, and also an acquaintance of Spike, stepped in to cool things off. After private conversations, Spike told the reporters the feud had been squashed, and he sent Clint a private screening copy of Miracle at St. Anna. They never made a film together, and neither has publicly praised the other since. But did you know that Clint Eastwood also hates Leonardo DiCaprio? The actor who is loved by everyone? Leonardo DiCaprio, ever since J. Edgar was released in 2011. Clint Eastwood never worked with Leonardo DiCaprio, making him one of the actors that he hates. The pair worked together on J. Edgar, but the movie wasn't a glowing success, and critics didn't have a lot of good reviews. But the poor performance might be because of the tense atmosphere within the crew. One thing we can be sure of is that Leonardo and Clint didn't see eye to eye. Clint is known for his fast, minimalist, shoot-it-and-move-on style in directing, using limited takes and trusting his instincts. But Leonardo is a celebrated method actor, and focuses on deep character exploration. With their different artistic processes, it's not surprising that they found it hard to work together. According to Armie Hammer, who also starred in the movie, Leonardo asked for a retake after filming one scene, but Clint refused and called it a wrap, causing the atmosphere between them to worsen. Some even say that Clint walked off set and ignored him. In fact, there was one time that Armie thought he was still rehearsing since the script was still in his hand. But Clint was already recording with the camera and deemed it a first take, assuring Armie that he would edit the script out of the shot. Another co-star in the movie, Judi Dench, defended Clint's approach but also acknowledged the friction between them. Talking about Clint, she said, "He was very casual. You only got one go at it, due to the fast pace of the production. Clint could achieve his vision, but it strained Leonardo's reflective process, leading to tension." She also said, "Leo DiCaprio and I did a scene where I was in bed with some papers and things in front of me. No dialogue or anything. So he sat here and we were talking and everything. Talking about everyday things. Then I said, 'Are we going to do this scene?' And Leo said, 'He's done it.' That was it. He'd done it while we were sitting there." Judi didn't have any qualms about Clint's form of directing, saying that it was heaven to finish on time. But Leonardo wasn't exactly pleased. Meanwhile, Leonardo had praised Clint for his efficiency and still said he never left the set wanting more. Despite saying this, the two of them have never worked together since then. It's clear that their creative energies didn't sync, especially since Clint often reuses actors he connects with. But another person that Clint doesn't sync with is Seth Rogen, who compared Clint's movie to Nazi propaganda. No wonder he hates him. The conflict between Seth Rogen and Clint Eastwood started in January 2015, when Seth Rogen tweeted, "American Sniper kind of reminds me of the movie that's showing in the third act of Inglourious Basterds." This was basically referring to the fictional Nazi propaganda film within Tarantino's movie. It meant that American Sniper was similar to Nazi propaganda, a highly charged comparison that ignited outrage. The reaction was swift and fierce. Many veterans and conservative voices like Sarah Palin, Dean Cain and Kid Rock demanded apologies, with some saying that Seth insulted American heroes. Seth had to clarify that he didn't mean to compare it politically, only that the sniper aspects reminded him from a film within a film. He expressed his admiration for American Sniper and respect for veterans. Clint is known for his reverence for soldiers, and so he approached American Sniper with care, hoping to portray all their sacrifices and trauma with dignity. So for Clint, the film was a tribute, and any suggestion equating it to Nazi visuals felt like a derisive dismissal of veterans' experiences and sacrifices. Clint never responded publicly, yet insiders say Seth's jab left a lasting impression. Clint responded not with words, but with action or inaction. No public acknowledgement, no offers to collaborate, no recognition of Seth since then. He reportedly made it clear to colleagues that Seth's name was unwelcome on any future projects. In true Eastwood fashion, the rebuke was quiet yet irrevocable. Insider reports say that Clint was deeply offended by the comparison, especially since it was made publicly. He still said he doesn't want to work with Seth again, and then he never mentioned him. The incident even led to an online public debate about the film and how it portrayed the Iraq War, and some critics accused it of glorifying war. Despite all the controversy, American Sniper became a major box office success. Like many other Eastwood movies, Clint Eastwood's artistic direction has been criticized by many, and it's because of that he doesn't like Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman. When Gene Hackman and Clint Eastwood first worked together, no one expected that they would end up with mutual dislike for each other. Gene was initially offered the role of Sheriff Little Bill Daggett, but he declined it because his family didn't like the fact that he was always taking violent rules. Clint then convinced him that the film was actually an anti-violence revisionist Western. This caused Gene to reconsider, and he ultimately won his second Oscar for the role. Although the result was good, they clashed a lot on the set. According to Clint, the shoot was smooth and flawless. He told interviewers that he often avoided rehearsals with Gene because he had the character so perfect right out of the box on every spot. He really didn't have to do anything different. Gene was known for his tough demeanor and uncompromising style in acting. There wasn't exactly a major outburst during filming, but according to insiders, Gene would push Clint on blocking and performance due to creative friction. Clint greatly admired Gene's performance, and he later said, "There's no finer actor than Gene, intense and instinctive, never a false note." And Gene also revealed that Clint had a lot of trust in him, allowing him to commit to a character. But there was a lot of tension during the movie because Clint was too controlling and Gene was always challenging him. This caused a rift during filming, despite the fact that the movie was a success. After Unforgiven, Clint and Gene never collaborated again. This is enough proof that he doesn't want to keep on working with him, especially since he had frequent partnerships with other actors like Morgan Freeman. Still, the movie was pretty successful, winning 4 Oscars, including Best Picture and Director. It became Clint's artistic turning point too. After Gene passed away in early 2025, Clint also paid him a heartfelt tribute, calling him a dear friend that he would miss very much. Clint and Gene's relationship ended well, which is similar to what we can say of conflict with John Wayne. John Wayne is known as Hollywood's Western hero through the 1940s and 1960s, and he viewed Westerns as stories of pioneers that overcame adversity with heroic spirit. It all started in 1973 when Clint released High Plains Drifter, his second directorial effort, which is a supernatural, morally ambiguous fable that featured brutal violence. But John responded with a scathing handwritten letter saying, "That isn't what the West was all about. That isn't the American people who settled this country." He also criticized Clint for distorting the pioneer spirit and straying from traditional Western values. Despite this, Clint wanted to bridge the gap between the two of them. He got a script for The Hostiles and offered John a lead role alongside him, but John rejected the role not once, but twice. In one memorable instance, he even tossed the screenplay into the sea and muttered, "This piece of **** again." John's contempt was for Clint too. Some sources say that he didn't like Clint Eastwood as an actor. Clint later revealed that he didn't hate John as bad as before and had reflected on the movie. He said, "I realized that there's 2 different generations and Wayne wouldn't understand what I was doing. High Plains Drifter was meant to be a fable, not about settling the West." In his view, John's criticism came from a generational gap because he was clinging to the past instead of reimagining it as Clint did. They later softened in their interactions and Clint once visited John Wayne on the set of The Shootist. They even shook hands. Even if they did, there wasn't any collaboration, and John passed away without ever working with Clint. Wayne's rejection of Clint's violent revisionist westerns, capped by his letter and rejection of Clint's collaboration, speaks to deeper differences between mythic heroism and troubled realism, between nostalgia and reinvention. As always, the conflict between them ended, and what they had wasn't exactly conflict, but it was mostly because of their differences in beliefs and storytelling approaches. Tom Hanks. If there's another actor that Clint Eastwood only worked with once because of their conflicts, it's Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks worked with Clint for the very first time on Sully, a critically acclaimed biopic about the pilot, Chesley Sunnelberger. It remains the only collaboration they ever had. Tom Hanks is known as Hollywood's everyman, and he described Clint's directorial style as terse and commanding. He said, "He treats his actors like horses," while referring to Clint's quiet "go ahead," and that's enough of that routine. Multiple insiders and outlets said the same thing, which is that Tom felt like Clint's demeanor was intimidating as hell, evident in his reputation. The two of them had different styles in acting and directing, which caused some tension during the filming of the movie. It also caused Clint to not have negative feelings for Tom Hanks. Clint favors minimal rehearsal, single takes and rapid shooting, a hallmark of his gritty, instinctual style. This contrasts with the deeply collaborative multiple-take approaches that actors like Hanks may prefer, even if Hanks didn't personally push back on that dynamic. Although Tom Hanks felt a lot of pressure because of Clint's strict dictatorial style, he still had a lot of respect for him because he was a veteran in the field. He saw Clint as a director who understood actors, and he always knew when to let talent shine. In response, Clint admitted that Tom Hanks was efficient and professional. Their relationship wasn't publicly denounced and there was no major conflict, but they never worked together beyond Sully. It's obvious that Tom Hanks couldn't handle Clint's rapid-fire one-take method and his intimidating behavior. Clint Eastwood approached to conflict. At age 95, Clint Eastwood names the 7 actors that he hates, and everyone is paying attention to his approach to conflict. what some often call quiet erasure. He is known for having a low tolerance for nonsense and dislikes yelling, drama and confusion on set. He prefers to keep an environment when all the actors feel good and are tension-free. When crossed, whether by disrespect or creative dissent, Clint doesn't launch a public feud. He simply removes that person from his orbit. This hushed but deliberate distancing is his form of retribution. No tweets, no interviews, just silent erasure. Clint was raised before Hollywood's golden age, and so he came up tough and unfiltered. Patrick McGilligan, his biographer, notes that Eastwood was always the same man, firm in his convictions, more so as time went on. When frustrated or offended, he doesn't lash out. He simply recalls his nature, calm, resolute, and unbending. Clint's code of respect stems from both history and instinct. Critics have accused him of harsh treatment on set, but he has maintained long-term creative partnerships like with cinematographers Bruce Surtees and Jack N. Green for decades, precisely by rewarding discipline, restraint, and dependability. Clint Eastwood's journey through Hollywood is not just a story of fame and fortune. It's a study in contrasts, a man of few words, yet capable of delivering some of the most iconic lines in cinema history. A director known for speed and simplicity, yet whose films are layered with depth, moral complexity, and emotional resonance. He has always valued substance over spectacle, discipline over chaos, and authenticity over performance, both in front of and behind the camera. His insistence on raw performances and emotional honesty set him apart from his peers. On his sets, actors often found themselves stripped of ego and forced to tap into something real, something vulnerable. But that same intensity, that same unwavering vision, also alienated others. Those who preferred control, perfectionism, or the safety of routine often clashed with Eastwood's instinctual, one-take approach. For him, art wasn't something to be endlessly polished. It was something to be captured in the moment, messy, flawed, and true. Throughout the decades, Eastwood has become a magnet for both admiration and controversy. His terse nature in interviews, his directness with collaborators, and his refusal to conform to Hollywood's ever-shifting culture earned him a reputation as both a legend and a lone wolf. Some called him intimidating, others called him a genius. Many called him both. And of course, the conflicts followed. From ideological battles with outspoken critics like Michael Moore, to creative tensions with powerhouse actors like Leonardo DiCaprio, Eastwood's unwillingness to bend, to compromise on his vision or beliefs, has ignited everything from whispered resentment to public spectacle. Yet even in the face of opposition, he never raised his voice. He never chased approval. He let his work speak for itself, and it did, louder than any press conference ever could. Now, in the twilight of his life, Clint Eastwood is finally allowing the world a closer look, not just at the legend, but at the man behind the camera. And what he reveals is layered, conflicted, and deeply human. These stories, these long-buried truths, may shock some, but for many, they only reinforce what we've always suspected, that Clint Eastwood never played by the rules. Not in film, not in life. And that's exactly why he became one of the most enduring figures in cinematic history. So now, we ask you, after everything you've seen and heard, which part of his story strikes you the most? Was it the creative clashes, the quiet defiance, or the sheer will of a man who shaped Hollywood on his own terms? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Clint Eastwood. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and never be afraid to look beyond the legend.